Forgive us, Lord. King David was an interesting character in the Old Testament. He was a brilliant combination of humility and compromise, courage and devious cunning, praises and warring. David, the shepherd boy turned king, is one of the most inspirational leaders, and yet one of the most sinful. Listen, just imagine for a moment the lust that drove him to steal another man's wife and expose the husband to a sure death at the front of a military attack. In other words, he deceitfully had him killed so that David could steal the man's wife. Wow, that's pretty disgusting. But I've sinned before too. So there's hope for a lot of us. The Bible even says God considered David the apple of his eye. Psalm 17, keep me as the apple of your eye. Hide me under the shadow of your wings. Why did God excuse such horrendous behavior? Well, it's pretty simple. David asked for forgiveness and God forgave him. He says in Psalm 65, when we were overwhelmed by sins, you forgave our transgressions. I used to be crippled by guilt from my past. I wasn't a choir boy in my youth, but I heard about the grace of God. I needed that grace to wash away my guilt. Ephesians 2:8 became the foundation for me and people like David and even you. For it's by grace you've been saved through faith. It's not from yourselves. It's a gift of God. David had enough sense to pray this prayer, wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. Psalm 51:2. I'm not ashamed to admit I've failed a million ways, but I've made it a point to ask God to forgive me. And I've asked him for these 5 things. Number 1, forgive me for all my sins and mistakes. Number 2, cleanse me of all defilement. Number 3, heal me of all the trauma and damages in my life. Number 4, help me reconcile with those I may have hurt. 5, ask others to forgive me. Listen, you don't need to be perfect to be the apple of God's eye. Only honest. You can do it because you're a miracle. And I'm your friend, Paul Mark Goulet.
Guard me as you would guard your own eyes. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. Though we are overwhelmed by our sins, you forgive them all. God saved you by his grace when you believed. And you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Wash me clean from my guilt. Purify me from my sins.